There we go. We're just starting it. And I get the camera thing. Oh, look at that. See that thing? We have those things. We even sell these things. If I can convince the camera and it to, yeah. I thought it would be cool to do one in an actual like character journal.
Okay. Sure.
Why not? We have the things. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have suggestions on what type of name giver race? What discipline?
Human Illusionist is the first one that hit the chat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like it. Let's do it. Ooh, Leafer Nethermancer. Ha. I don't think we quite have Leafers in 4th Ed yet.
Josh? Yeah, we do. They were included in Vasgothia.
Oh, they were, weren't they? Oh my gosh, I'm so behind most of the time.
They were indeed. That's okay. No, we'll let's not go too.
I'm actually kind of on the Illusionist. Or
yeah. Human Illusionist. I think it hit first. Let's do that. We'll see what time does for us.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so I, who know nothing currently, have a pencil and paper, and just in case, my handy dandy, shiny player's guide. Oh, so Josh, who's so much smarter than me, what do I do? What do me and the peanut gallery do?
Well, I'm flipping to my own references here.
That's a good idea. And I'm going to try to watch the main chat room so that if you guys have suggestions when we come upon things.
I've got an eye on the chat.
Okay. Oh, good. That's better than me trying to do both.
Yeah. So the first 2 steps of the character creation process have actually just been done for us by the lovely W. Socrates in chat. We're going to be making a human illusionist. The first thing when making an Earthdawn character that we suggest in the character creation chapter of the Earthdawn 4th edition player's guide is to choose your discipline, because the discipline defines so much about your character and their outlook and what is going to be important for them, both from a mechanical as well as role-playing standpoint. So that's the first thing that you want to choose. So we've chosen Illusionist, which is one of the magician disciplines, which is nice because we'll get to talk about spell stuff as well as part of the character creation process. And then we've got the race was also suggested, which was human, which is an interesting one to go with as well. And then the next step is to generate your character's attribute values. These are the basic building blocks of your character, the sort of physical and mental attributes that define who they are.
Which dice?
Yes, there are dice, but most of the time we don't use dice to create characters in Earthdawn. We have a point-based system. Yes.
I hate point buy.
It is a point buy system.
I am told, however, it's one of the better point buy systems. So we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
I find I'm lucky with dice.
Well, that may be true. So there are 6 attributes, and the different ones are important for different disciplines depending on what your focus is. We've got dexterity, strength, toughness, perception, willpower, and charisma. Now, for all of the magician discipline, the vast majority of their talents, which are their magical abilities, are based off of perception or willpower. And so we would want those to be among the higher ones. Charisma can also be useful for an illusionist because there is frequently a social aspect to that discipline, where they try to deceive or manipulate or reveal the truth. So there is some interpersonal and role-playing interactions that can come into play there, and charisma is important for that. Which means that those are where we're going to want to put our points. Now, there are a couple of schools of thought when it comes to attributes. I tend to go from the school of thought that is, it's a good idea to put high values in your primary things, but to have other stuff be kind of balanced rather than have something be really low that ends up being a potential downside or weakness for your character. Like, for example, selling off or not really putting any toughness, which defines how well you can soak up damage. That means that if you do get into trouble where you would take injury, it's going to affect you more than it's going to affect other people. But then there are those who like to get things as high as possible into their character's primary stats so that they are really, really good at the things that they are good at, and then just hopefully rely on their fellows and the situation to keep them out of situations where it is troublesome uh, for them to be in dexterity or toughness. Humans start with a base 10 in all 6 of their values. Different name giver races will have different starting values, either higher or lower by a point, depending on what their trends are as a particular name giver race. For example, trolls get bonuses to strength and toughness, as do obsidian. Windlings get penalties to those because they're small and physically weaker in general. And then you get 25 attribute points to spend to increase those values. Now, it's not spent one for one. It's kind of a... What was that?
Oh, my cord got caught. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's not a 1 for 1, and you start at 10.
Yeah. Yes, you start at 10. It's not 1 for 1. It is 1 point for this can be 61 of the player's guide. For either a +1, a +2, or a +3, it is that same cost out of your point total. Then it's 5 points for a +4, 7 points for a +5, 9 points for a +6. So it increases by 2 for each of those. And then it goes up by 3s after that. So 12 points to get a +7 to your base, and 15 points to get a +8, which is the maximum that you can have.
And I only have 25 points.
The other thing to keep in mind is that your attribute value converts over into your character's base step for that attribute, which determines the dice, which determines all sorts of stuff. Generally speaking, you want to shoot to get at least a 16 in your primary attributes, because that will put you at step 7, which is a really good starting point to have in your strong suits.
Let's say I'm crazy and I want it to be an 18 on my perception.
If you want to be
so much
18,
is based
you
on
can
that.
do that for one of them. You could shoot for an 18 in your perception. That's going to cost you more than half of your attribute points to start off with.
Yeah, it'll cost me 15.
The 18, the +8 to your 10 perception is going to cost you 15 out of your 25 points.
I don't know, room. What does the room think? Leave it at a 16 or push it and get that perception up higher?
British Joel is saying dump strength, which is certainly a valid option. As a magician, you are not likely to be doing much of anything that's going to require strength.
Yeah,
you can trade. I'm just going to leave that at a 10 for now. Okay. It is an option to reduce your starting value and get additional points to spend elsewhere. You get 1 point for dropping it by 1 and 2 points for dropping it by 2. The only real drawback as a magician for having a low strength means that you're not going to be able to necessarily carry a lot of gear.
Oh, I'll just get somebody else to carry it. That's
like
valid, right?
You are. Well, yeah, and that may also limit the options that you have in terms of like what armor and other stuff like that
That's
you might be
true.
able to use.
Well, so Mr. Pink is suggesting a 16 and not going crazy.
British Joel is saying that reducing the strength by 2 is a sensible way to get to an 18 in perception. But I think we've got another vote for
Ooh,
the 16 being solid,
yeah.
because you can increase your attribute value during the course of play by spending legend points to increase it. So you are not locked in at those starting values.
Perception's going to be a 16.
So that is also something to keep in mind.
And you said a 16 was going to cost me 12 points?
No, it's going to cost you 9 because you only need to add a +6.
9. So let's see. I would say charisma at a 16 too. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, you could go the route. You know, you also maybe want to keep your willpower in mind as well, because all of your sort of rolled effect tests are based off of willpower.
Oh, well, let's see. Maybe we move that to a 16. Do the willpower at 16?
Yeah, if we do a willpower at 16, there's another 9 points. So we spend 18 out of our 25, leaving us with 7.
So I would see, let's see, how much to move the charisma to a 5?
You mean to a 15?
Yes. So +5, sorry.
That would be our remaining 7 points, which means all 3 of our dexterity, strength, and toughness would be limited to 10.
Is that a bad idea?
It's a way to go. It is not.
Well, what does the room think?
I mean, the drawback is with a low dexterity like that, if somebody gets up close to you where they are able to attack you physically, that means it's going to be easier than to hit you and injure you. Certainly something that you can do, and depending on your group's makeup and tactics and whatnot, it can be something that you are fine with. And there is always magic and other stuff that can make up for that shortcoming elsewhere down the line.
So let's see. Mr. Pink is got a good 10, 10, 13, 13, 16, 16.
Yeah, go with a pair of 13s rather than a 15 and nothing else. That's not bad. The British Joel just brought up that first edition had a different scale. It gave you 66 points, but you were buying effectively from a base 5 rather than a base 10, which is where a lot of those extra points kind of went, is just kind of getting those automatically raised up to that point.
So what are we thinking? 10, 10, 13,
I mean,
13?
I honestly, I would be even inclined personally, if I were making this character as a human, to probably look at the willpower and dropping that down to a 15 to give myself a couple of extra points elsewhere. But again, that's my sort of balancing act.
Well, you're helping us learn this, remember? So that's part of the balancing act.
So this is the way that I would go. So
for the will.
Yeah, so we'll go for a 15 in willpower. So that gives us having used 16 of our 25 points. So we've got 9 left, which means that we could actually go with 3 plus 3 13s and 1 10. Like that 1 point trade there gave us an extra 13 to replace a 10.
And the 10's still going to be our strength.
Yeah, the 10 strength for an illusionist, I think, is fine. I don't think that's going to be a big problem. And we'll do 13s in the other stuff, which is a good place to be because, you know, a 14 is a really common break point for attributes to get you to a good spot, and one attribute raise to get you from that 13 to a 14.
Oh, the room is totally agreeing with you. They're very big on this 13. Yeah. Now, I have a question or a comment, maybe.
Yeah.
So as a human, I don't raise any of my stats, right? Like a troll might have a plus here and a minus there, but humans are straight across the board, right?
That is correct. Yeah, humans are straight 10s across the board. An orc, for example, starts the base 13 in strength. So if it were an orc illusionist, you might even be willing to trade a point or two off of that to get extra points elsewhere, and still be stronger than the human illusionist that we were making. Of course, you would have to like make up those points because your base willpower and charisma are lower than they are for a human. So there are trade-offs, based on the attribute distributions that are the bases for the various name giver races. Certain races tend to be easier to fit into some disciplines than others, but there aren't any that are totally unsuited, provided you understand how to take advantage of their strengths and minimize their weaknesses.
So I can go ahead and write down the values for each of these because we won't be altering
Yep,
them.
correct. The base values we won't be altering from this point.
Our dex is a 13, that's a 10, that's a 13. Our perception is a 16. Our willpower is a 15, and our charisma is a 13. So that translates into a step. Do you have
Correct.
that up?
The 16, yep, the 16 is a step 7.
Okay.
13 to 15, those are all step 6.
Sixes. And the 10 is a 4?
10
No, 10
is a
is a
step
5.
5.
5.
Yeah. So 10, 11, and 12 are step 5.
And let's see.
And then the die type for those step 5 is a D8.
Step 5 is a D8. Step 6 is a
Step 6 is a D10.
D10.
D10. And step 7 is a D12.
And I would write those in here.
Yep. And then you've got the little markers there to indicate when you have actually spent raises to increase your base value.
Now, since there's only 3 dots, does that mean you can only go up by 3 times?
That is correct. You can only raise any individual attribute 3 times at the most, which will bump it up to the next step because the steps increase every 3 points.
Okay. So what would I do next?
The next thing that we're going to do is look at the table on page 63 of the player's guide and start filling in all sorts of derived stats that are based on those values. So we're going to start off with our defense ratings. I think it's on the page there. You've got a physical, mystic, and social defense.
Yes, I do. Right here.
Our dexterity was a 13, which means that our base physical defense is an 8. Our mystic defense is based on our perception was a 16, which puts us at a 9.
So physical, you
and
said
our
was
social
an 8?
defense, physical is an 8. Mystic is a 9. What was our charisma?
Our charisma, we decided, was a 13.
13, that's also an 8.
So
those are the target. Yep. So those are the target numbers that people need to equal or exceed when they're trying to do stuff to you.
That's important.
Yes. The next thing that we are going to fill in is our carrying capacity.
Okay.
I think is on that page there. Maybe
Yes,
it's on the other page.
It's right here.
Our carrying capacity with a strength of 10 is 80 pounds. So that is the maximum that we can carry without being encumbered.
And movement rating?
Our movement rate is based on us being a human, which means it's 12.
12? Okay.
Yep, 12 yards per round. And we can spend our action during combat to move again to go to 24 yards per round. Next, we're going to fill in our health ratings. This is how much damage we're able to take. These are all based off of toughness, which we set as a 13.
Yes, sir.
So our unconsciousness rating is a base of 26.
Okay.
Our death rating is a base of 32.
32.
Our wound threshold is 9.
So our wound threshold is 9?
Yep. And we have 3 recovery tests.
Okay. And our step for recovery is based on our toughness, right?
Yes, the recovery die is the same as our toughness die, so this it would be a D10. Next, we will fill in our mystic armor. Physical armor is based on the armor that we wear. We don't have any yet, so we'll fill that in later. But with a willpower of 15, we have a base mystic armor of 3,
Okay.
which is pretty much the highest that you can have as a starting character.
See, this is going pretty easy. And you said all that was pretty much found on page 63?
All 64 and 63 and 65. 63 has most of those you discover on page 5.
Okay. So what's next?
Next, also, we fill in karma. As a human, our karma modifier is 5, which is multiplied then by our circle to determine our total starting karma. Since we're a new character, first circle, we will have 5 karma total.
Maximum 5 and my current's 5.
Maximum 5, yeah. And then every time we go up in circle, that will increase by multiple 5. So second circle will have 10, third circle will have 15, and so forth.
In 4th edition, it doesn't matter that in human we all get d6s, right?
That is correct. Yeah, in Earthdawn, we have a standard 6-sider. D6 is the karma die for everybody. That increases when you get into higher circles from a D6 to a D8, again, for everybody.
Well, see, we've already got a lot of this filled out.
We have one racial ability as a human. That is I don't know if that's on those.
I'm not sure if that's on this page. I think the talents and next abilities. I think racials could go under regular abilities, right? And that was versatility.
That is versatility. Now, versatility is a special talent that humans can purchase that allows them to learn talents from other disciplines. It is a way to get around the limitation of you can only buy magical talents from your discipline. And that actually can be something that's handy for an illusionist if they want to pretend to be another discipline for some reason. They could use versatility to learn talents from those other disciplines to be able to more convincingly pretend to be them.
That's really great. Now, on my first page, because I'm using the character journal, the only other major piece of things I think I need to know are, well, the initiative, which right underneath says dexterity step. So I'm thinking that's where we start.
Right. Your base initiative is equal to your dexterity. That could be your dexterity step. That can be modified depending on what type of armor you buy, which we will know once we get through equipment.
Okay, so we'll leave that for a second. Now, where do you think we should go?
The next thing that we move on to actually is to assign our talent ranks. Actually, let's back up one moment back to the health ratings.
Okay.
Because you are an adept, you have durability, which means extra health that you have as a result of your magical tradition. Because you are first circle and you're an illusionist, your durability is 3, which means that you actually add an additional 3 points to both your death and unconsciousness ratings.
Ooh, okay, so that makes that a 29 and a 35. The eraser on my pencil's awful, so I'm going to try to see if the other pencil eraser is better. Oh yeah, this is much better.
And then as well, you also add your character's circle to your death rating. So your death rating will actually be 36 because you add 1 as a first circle character.
Okay, so my death rating is now 36, and
your unconsciousness should be 29.
29, there you go. All right, so that's fixed. All right, so now we're going to my discipline talents.
That is correct.
Awesome. So what do we think in the room? If you guys have suggestions, what do you think we should do? What talents are probably the most important?
So first off, as an illusionist, you get 2 standard matrices for free. So you automatically get those. You don't need to spend any points on them. You get those right away.
All right. And those are at rank 1, right?
Those are at rank 1 because as free talents, they are equal. Their rank is equal to your circle.
So I have Standard Matrix 1, Standard Matrix 2. Both at rank 1.
Correct.
Should I go ahead and fill in the attribute?
There is no attribute associated with a spell matrix.
It's the matrices. That's just
It's just the matrix. The rank determines. Yep, the rank determines the maximum spell circle that can be held in that matrix. So then, as an illusionist, our discipline talents are false sight, first impression, pattern craft, spell casting, and illusionism, which is the illusionist version of thread weaving.
Probably gonna have to go a little slower for me to write. So I have false sight, first impression.
First impression, pattern craft.
Pattern craft. Oh, that's important.
Pattern craft is how you learn new spells and also learn stuff about magical patterns and whatnot. Spell casting.
That's also important.
That is also important. And illusionism, which is thread weaving. Also important.
Okay. And those are all currently at 1s.
Then there is also the ability to select a talent option. At each circle, characters get 1 slot that they can fill with talent from a list of options, which gives you a little bit more ability to customize and provide a little bit of variety so that not every character looks exactly the same.
Okay, so we're getting to pick 1. What's our options?
The options from the list at novice here, which are circles 1 to 4. Arcane Mutterings, that's a talent that allows you to sort of confuse and bewilder people that you aren't in combat with. Astral Sight, which is the ability to peer into astral space and see magical patterns and energies. Awareness, which is your ability to notice stuff. Deadfall is a talent that allows you to pretend to, when you get hit, pretend to be dead, and it kind of magically distracts people away from you so that you don't continue to get and maybe able to sneak away. Mimic Voice, which is pretty much what it sounds like. You can sound like somebody else or something else, impersonating someone if you have heard their voice before. Speak Language, which is the magical ability to learn and speak languages rather than doing it the hard way. You only need to listen to a few minutes of somebody speaking a language, and there's a chance that you can learn it.
Oh, I want that
one. Another standard matrix so that you can have 3 spells ready instead of just 2. Stealthy Stride, which is the general sort of stealth and sneakiness talent. Taunt, where you impose penalties on people by taunting them, making fun of them, backed with a little bit of magical mojo. And Winning Smile, which is another sort of charisma, manipulation, social food talent.
Let's see. In the room, I know we've got suggestions for the other spell matrix, which is a good idea. Taunt. I kind of like the learn languages. Anybody else?
Okay.
Well, I mean, we might not want to go with my idea. I come up with crazy ideas. Stealthy Stride.
Yeah. And this is where your image of the character and what kind of style you picture for them would come into play. There is the possibility of putting a point into versatility and picking up a talent from another discipline through that. The drawback of that at character creation is that you only have 8 points to spend, And if you take versatility and another talent, there are 2 points that you can't put into your other stuff. It is an approach. It is something that you can do. It just uses up your limited points.
I think.
So
Okay, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, so setting that aside for the moment,
I was gonna
the
say
ideas.
let's go with the because it's a little more unusual, I think, than what most everyone was thinking. Let's go with the learn languages.
With the speak language?
Yeah,
Okay.
to speak languages.
Yeah, and then
Because as an illusionist, I'm going to use that maybe to trick people. I better know what they're
mhm,
saying.
sure. And then maybe what you could do is kind of looking at later development if you're going to be going for kind of a trickster con man type of approach for your illusionist, you could pick up mimic voice as an option later on and then be able to mimic voices in other
Oh,
languages that you
yeah.
learn to speak.
Oh,
So there
Mr.
is some
Pink is
synergy
right
that
too.
you can get there.
Speak languages helps with taunt. It's hard to
It
taunt
can
people if
also
they
help
can't
with
tell.
taunt
Yeah.
because yeah, taunt does require the target to be able to understand what you're saying. So
Okay.
that is something that you could work into that as
So
well.
that would be our other free one from the list, right?
That would be our optional
Our
now.
optional.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna so we've got 8 points that we can put into our starting ranks for those 6 towns and the agencies that we've got for free.
Uh-huh.
We've got 8 points to put into the other 6. My feeling generally
Okay.
is for magicians to put 2 ranks each into spellcasting and thread weaving and to put 1s into everything else. Because spellcasting and thread weaving are your bread and butter as a magician, and you want to have those higher if you can. But that's just me. If there's something that you feel is more important, then you can certainly put it there. If you want to go, you can't take more than 3 in a given talent to start. So you could even go with a 3 in your spellcasting and 1s in everything else. Or if you want to not put any points into a talent to start off with and just be able to raise it later, that's fine, but understand that you wouldn't be able to use that talent until you did so.
So what do you think of raising? So putting the one in false sight, but then, or so no, so basically not adding any to false sight, but making first impressions a little bit higher,
So,
and then
okay.
and then pattern
Yeah.
craft, spellcraft at the threes, and illusion and speak languages at the twos. Because if you're going to be possibly conning people, that first impression is important. I would think.
Okay, so what are your rank breakdowns there?
So I have the one in the standard matrix and one and two because that's just what that
Those are
is.
both free. Yep.
Right. So false sight is at a one. Oh no no no! I think I did it wrong.
You spent too many points.
I did.
Sounds like.
I think I did it wrong because I was thinking you had one in it, but no, you just put in. I know.
No, you don't have any in any of them to
Right.
start off with.
So we want a one here. Um, I think we're just gonna go with yours
Okay.
right now
So
because that would be the 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
it would be 8.
7, 8. Yeah, that would be the 8 points.
Yeah. Okay. And now we're going to fill some initial information on those talents. So to kind of fill in the other columns there.
Oh, yeah. So attributes on false sight.
False sight is willpower. So that will be a 6.
6. First impression
And
should
then
be.
adding that to the
Oh, so is it 7?
first impression is charisma, which will also be a 6.
Pattern craft and spellcraft
What?
are both perception, right?
Those are both perceptions. Those will be
7.
7. Yep. Illusionism / thread weaving is also perception, so that's a 7.
And speak languages is also a 7.
Speak language is also perception, so that'll be a 7. And so then you add your rank to that attribute step to determine what your final step is.
So 7, 7, 9, 9, 7. Or sorry, 8, 8. Yeah. 1 plus 6, 1 plus 6, 2 plus 7, 2 plus 7, 1 plus 7, 1 plus 7.
Yep. And then you can fill in the dice. The step 7 is a D12.
Step 7 is a D12.
Step 8 is 2d6. And step 9 is d8 plus d6.
Do any of those have strain?
False sight costs 1 strain. First impression does not cost any. I know spellcasting, threadweaving, and pattern-craft don't cost any. Speak language, I believe, costs 1. Yeah, speak language does cost 1 strain.
Well, that's pretty easy. That looks like it's done. Now what do we do?
Yeah. Next, we move on to skills. And so for skills, all characters get to start off 2, and this may be where you want to go back to your scrap paper.
Oh, got it.
You get 2 ranks in knowledge skills, 1 rank in an artisan skill, 2 ranks in the speak language skill, 1 rank in read write language, and then 8 additional points that you can spend either on those or to pick up more skills.
Okay.
And this is where you start kind of fleshing out the things that your character can do that maybe aren't magical, but tie into your background or things that you like and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So the artisan skill, it is traditional within the lands of Arthave for adepts in particular to practice some sort of craft, because it is a common belief that those who are corrupted or heavily influenced by the horrors are not able to create works of beauty or to practice the dedication required to perform crafts of some sort. And usually the craft that they perform is something that can be done relatively easily without a huge amount of elaborate equipment, so that if they are asked to demonstrate that they are free of taint, they can do so in a relatively short time without too much difficulty.
So
It is traditional, though by no means required, for magicians to practice robe embroidery as their skill, because that harkens back to the old traditions where matrices were actually physically woven into their robes, and so that allowed them to do that, but it is not, strictly speaking, required, especially
do
if
that.
somebody doesn't want.
If somebody wanted something different, it would be very easy. Instead of writing embroidery, you would write flute playing or dancing or
Yep, or dancing or whatever.
whittling.
Yeah, I had actually, there was an illusionist. Yep, there was an illusionist in a game that I ran years and years ago who didn't embroider his robes, but still practiced that. And his grimoire was basically a series of handkerchiefs that were knotted together and had his spells embroidered onto them. So when he was referring to his grimoire, he would pull out this string of handkerchiefs from his sleeve, like a traditional magician.
That's awesome. So let's see. So that's my artisan. We're gonna go with embroidery.
Yep.
And then
Yeah, that's artisan skill, and so you get that at 1
one rank in it.
automatically.
And
Yeah.
it's based off
Then
of
you get, it's based off of charisma.
charisma. So that would be a 6,
So it'd be a 6,
which creates a 7.
putting you at a total 7,
Which is
with a d12 as the die.
12. Is there any strain with skills?
There is strain with some skills, but not with your artisan skill.
Okay, so that gets a 0 there. On read write, I get
Read
1.
write
Yeah.
Yep, you get 1 rank, and it is usually the language that characters are able to read and write is Throlic, which is the dwarf tongue and is the common language in Barksave. You can put one of your additional 8 points into that to give you an additional language that you can read and write.
I'm thinking about doing that. Well,
Um,
maybe we'll pick a language. But for right now, I know that this is a perception base. So my attribute is a +7.
Correct. Yep.
For step
Yeah,
8.
with the skill versions, both read and write and speak language, each rank that you have in it indicates basically a language that you know.
So and then
So if you have read and write at 1, you can read and write 1 language. If you have it at 2, then you can read and write 2 languages. It is possible to be able to read and write a language that you can't speak, but that's a little weird. So I
ask your
tend not
GM.
to. Yeah.
Ask your
There's a
GM.
question. Yeah, there's a question in the chat. What do I think of spending extra points to increase your artisan skill to make it easier to do? That's a valid approach. If you're going to be playing a game where that may be called on a little bit more often, because you're going to be doing, say, like a care delving campaign or being out in the wilds where you are more likely to run into people who are going to ask you to do that, especially if you have a lower charisma. Spending an extra point or 2 in your artisan skill to make it a little bit more reliable that you're going to be able to do it successfully is not a bad idea. Whether you should do that or not will depend on the style of game that you're going to be playing, which is something that should probably be discussed as a group as you are all together sort of making your characters and figuring out what you're going to do. That's sort of a session 0 type determination. And different games, of course, will have advantages or disadvantages in terms of what you want to play. Illusionists tend to do really well with games, or do better with games where there's going to be more sort of city work and social interaction and dealing with name givers and whatnot, because a lot of their spells and abilities play into those strengths. Whereas, an elementalist might not need that kind of focus in order to really shine.
Awesome. Okay. So
Then we've got 2 knowledge skills. These generally represent things that your character knows about. And it's kind of open-ended. There are several suggestions in the player's guide. There's a sample list of, about a dozen or so on page 197. But there are anything that you could think of that your character could consider an area of knowledge or expertise as something that you could choose as a knowledge skill.
well, I'm gonna pretend like maybe I'll be doing something near that Legends of Bersave stuff. So how about a knowledge for Haven? Or do you think a
Yeah,
knowledge for
that's good.
Parlangth would be better?
Um, I think either of those would work. The
Haven's
the
easier to spell.
advantage is that, yeah, Haven is easier to spell.
Yeah.
Haven, you would have a lot more information about the personalities and people and organizations that are there. And you could arguably have some knowledge of Parlangth that's connected with that. It would just be a little bit more difficult to know. There's a whole bit of knowledge on knowledge skills in the guide talking about related knowledge and that sort of thing. But having your 2 knowledges being in Parlangth, would give you a pretty good base to work from in terms of questions about those topics.
And I think on the second one, let's do cares.
Cares?
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to know something
Yeah,
about. So
sure.
each of those would be at 1 point.
Each of those would be at 1.
Based on perception.
And again, you've got those. Yep, they're also based on perception. And again, if you want to take any of your free points, the 8 points you have, and put those in there, you can certainly do that if you wanted to make them a little bit higher. Just like with talents, you can't put more than 3 ranks into any skill to start off with. And then we've got our speak languages, we've got our read write language, and now we've got another 8 points to spend that we can spend on any skills in the game.
And I think
And
we're
there
time to
are quite a
pretend I
number
know
of them.
those. Because there's a lot of
Yeah,
skills
that
to go through each and every
there are a
animal.
lot of skills. There are skill versions of many hands. Uh, there's a lot of choices there, and it will help you flesh out your character and maybe pick up
Do you
things
have
that
one or two quick suggestions?
um
Like if you're
I
picking
always
two off
think
the
that
top of your head.
if I were taking two off the top of my head, I would think about whether I was going to take awareness as one of my talents, and if not, pick it up as a skill, because it's nice to get that extra point or two on your perception test to notice things and be able to investigate stuff. I think it's not a bad idea, especially if you're a magician or something, to pick up a like combat talent as a backup just in case for some reason, whether that's throwing weapons or melee weapons or something like that. You may not end up using it, but there's always the time where, oh, gee, I really wish I had this, and then you do. There, you've got, if you're going as an illusionist with your sort of like con man, sneaky social type guy, you could always pick up acting as an additional thing where you could pretend to be someone. There's there's the disguise skill where you could make yourself look like people. There's various things that you could pick up there, not to mention going through the list of all of the stuff that um is available for talent and skills that you may want to take to sort of supplement your abilities. But that's kind of what you would want to look at, and all of those options there. And we're not going to go through all of the points. Streetwise, yeah, W Socrates mentions in the chat Streetwise. That's not a bad one if you're going to be going for a sort of con man, thiefy adjacent kind of character. That could definitely be useful, because then you would be able to get the word on the street and learn information about stuff along the.
So after I get my skills together, where would I go next?
After you get your skills together, I'm flipping back here, then you would do your equipment. There's some stuff that you get for free. You get an adventurer's kit, tools to perform your artisan skill, a dagger or knife, your grimoire, set of clothing, and then 100 silver pieces to buy other equipment. The equipment being in the back part of the player's guide. Generally, want to make sure that you get a suit of armor, and trade off your armor protection towards how much it will encumber you and slow you down in combat for your dexterity. Again, there's a lot of choices there, and we're kind of starting to run short on time, so we're not going to get into all the details on that. And after that, the other thing that we would do as a magician is to look at the list of spells available to us at first circle, and we get a number of points to our perception step, which in this case is 7. And we can buy first or second circle spells. First circle spells costing 1 point out of that pool, and second circle costing 2. Personally, I tend not to recommend picking up a second circle spell at character creation. Only because it costs you 2 slots, and there's no reliably safe way to cast it, because you can't put it into your matrices. So you would be casting it as the magic. Possibly, if there was a really good argument to be made for a spell that you would tend to be casting from your grimoire, which you can do, it might be worth it. But even then, you're looking at trading things off.
So, because of time, what would be the first 2 or 3 spells on the top of your head for an illusionist?
As an illusionist, Ephemeral Bolt would probably be one that I would take. That is a
Sorry,
that's a damage. Ephemeral Bolt.
Oh, you have to pick the ones that are hard.
EPHEMERAL Bolt. This casts an illusory bolt of energy at a target, deals them damage, and it does have the drawback that it is illusory. So if for some reason the target suspects that it might not actually be real, they can disbelieve it and not be affected by it at all. But that doesn't happen very often. In the chat, somebody mentioned Monstrous Mantle, which would be my second choice. Monstrous Mantle is a very nice sort of enhancement spell. You cast that on one of your allies. It gives them +2 bonuses to both their close combat attack and damage and gives them a +2 physical defense. It basically kind of hulks them out a little bit, which is a really nice combat enhancement for first circle.
Yeah.
And then with they're looking at the sort of con man illusionist social type. Best Face, also mentioned in the chat, is another good one. That gives you a +3 bonus to any charisma based tests, which means you cast that on yourself and it makes you that much more charming and easy to manipulate or deceive or fool people.
Since we only have a 13 in that would help out a lot.
Yeah. That, giving that +3 bonus there would be good. And then probably I would go with a fourth one, True Ephemeral Bolt, as the fourth, which is the real equivalent to Ephemeral Bolt. You can put both of those spells in the same matrix, and so decide on any given round whether you're casting the fake one or the real one, which is really good for an illusionist to be able to change things up and keep their targets guessing.
And you get to keep 2 spells in one matrix, which gives you the kind of almost like having 3 that you can't have yet.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And yeah, another decent one for this kind of like con man manipulator is Trust, which creates a friendly relationship between the magician and the target. It helps make it, again, a little bit easier to manipulate or fast talk or do that sort of stuff with people.
That's
and we haven't used all of our.
We still have 2 more points.
And then yeah, and then let's see. As a backup, I would go with the second circle spell. Let's do we could go with See the Unseen. Second circle spell, but it's got a long duration, so casting it out of your matrix, it's not something you're going to be doing, or out of your grimoire. It's not something you'd be doing in combat, but it does give you a +5 bonus to perception tests to detect hidden objects or characters. So if you're searching for something, secret doors, all that sort of stuff, it can help you with that, which is a nice little bonus as well.
Okay, so in here, I would write the spell name, the circle, which would be a 1, except for on Seeing the Unseen, which would be a 2.
Except for See the Unseen, yeah.
I would put threads, which is 1 thread.
It depends on the spell.
Oh, it's
different spells have different numbers of threads.
It'll tell you.
Yes, right. Yep. Yep. The illusionist spells start on page 294.
And the rest of these are pretty easy to.
Yeah, it's all just filling in the info. Yep, you would just copy them out of the book.
Okay. So after I got my spells, I'm pretty close to done.
Yeah, spells and equipment, and then you're pretty much done.
I think if you got armor or something, I think if you got armor or if you got one of the, there's a couple of disciplines like that help your initiative. You would then come back,
right? Yeah,
we don't changes to those, and yeah. So hopefully, everybody liked this. Josh has agreed to do more of these with different character types. And hopefully they're going up on YouTube so that we kind of demystify.
Names are hard.
Sorry, I am bad at names today. I need a nap.
No, W Socrates just said in chat, don't forget your name. And I was just saying that names are hard.
I forget my name a lot. Okay, so Josh and I are going to do these. We're going to try to build characters and hopefully make this process seem a lot less scary to newcomers. So thank you guys for your help. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to stop the recording. Streaming is still happening.